Welcome to the 8th edition of Canlandıranlar Festival 2020. It is also the 10th anniversary of the Canlandıranlar Talent Camp. I'm Dilara, Polat, and this is Maggie Chung, and we're connecting from Hong Kong today. I was actually a project owner for the 2010, the very first talent camp, where I made the short animated film called An Istanbul Seagull with the huge help of Canlandıranlar talent camp at the time. As a 13-year-old girl, it actually what set me up. And I ended up coming to Hong Kong to study sequential arts at SCAD Hong Kong. And at my senior year, I ended up joining a competition by Hong Kong Disneyland called Imaginations, where it's a design competition and the winners would get to do an internship with Hong Kong Disneyland. Both me and actually Maggie is an alumni of that competition, where we ended up working for Hong Kong Disneyland's now design and show quality team. And the design and show quality team basically now does most of the, basically the upkeep of the existing park, whether it's graphics or improvement of what we already have. So Maggie, please tell us more about yourself.
Sure. I graduated from SCAD Hong Kong and I majored in visual effects. And after I graduated, I actually worked in the movie production or film production industry for a little bit before I joined Disney. And I've been working at the design and show quality department or team for about 2 years now. So I have a bit of work that I can show.
Let me pull up some of the work Maggie has done for the park.
So these are some of the posters that I have worked on, and the one on the left is a attraction poster, and the one on the right is a seasonal poster for the Chinese New Year in Hong Kong. And this one, the next one is, these are some glass panels that I've designed for one of the Chinese restaurants in our park. And these are Disney characters that are engraved and gilded on glass.
Maggie, did you actually get to work with the animation studios in the making of these panels?
We did. We had to send them our drafts and then get approvals from them before we actually get these into production.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is from the same restaurant in the park, and I've taken part in the creation of this artwork on the skylight, and these are made of glass as well. And then this is another project that I've worked on in collaboration with some talented artists from our team as well. And this is an ice cream shop that's in our Main Street, USA.
So Maggie, it seems like the kind of work we do at the DSQ is really varied and might like appear like it doesn't have much to do with animation perhaps. So would you be able to tell us more about your journey? I first want to ask you, can you tell us about how your interest in animation and visual effects started?
It started out like a lot of people. It was all because of my parents. Back then, when I was a little kid, they would rent these animations films from the rental shop, and then they would show it to me after school to like keep me quiet and have me stay still while they work on like housework, cooking, or have some rest themselves. And then I would be so drawn into them, and then I would really stay there and stay quiet for like the whole time. And then I would watch these animations almost every day after school, and then watch them over and over again. I would get tired of them. And that's how it got me into like art and drawing. Naturally, I would try to imitate and draw these characters that I see in these movies.
Then can you tell us about what were some of like the specific animations that really impacted you, that pushed you into a more like animation love?
It was mostly animations with animals in it. I really liked how the animators gave life to these animal characters. They make them all like adorable and really have a lot of character in them, like a lot of emotions, where it's not always seen in actual like realistic animals.
Then
so a lot of these animations, they include say The Lion King, The Fox and the Hound back then, and then say Bambi. They all have really adorable animals in them.
so what would you say that really grabbed you with animation? Like, then was it the character acting that you found really fascinating?
I believe it's the characters back then was really captured.
Then can you tell us more about how did you decide on your path for education? Because that's one of the most like exciting things for young people that are interested in animation.
Back then, when I was still in secondary school, my dad really wanted me to get into like say counting, but then I had to convince him that my brain isn't really made for that. So I had to really convince him that I really want to get into art, and luckily or fortunately, my mom really tried to push me into like pursuing what I really love and my dream in pursuing art. And eventually my dad agreed to it, and then at the same time SCAD opened up in Hong Kong that year. So I was lucky enough to be the first batch of students in SCAD Hong Kong.
So was there like a turning point in, because we're talking about all this animation now, but actually you did not end up studying in animation, even though that was your intention beginning at the beginning of the university, I believe.
Yeah, because all this decision for going into an art school happened really quickly. It happened in like maybe 1-2 weeks. So then when I went into SCAD, I hadn't really think too much into like what to major in. So it wasn't until like towards the end of the first year in SCAD where I really talked to different professors and different students. And then at that time, I decided that I really wanted to get into animation and then work on maybe the time I haven't even thought of going into 2D animation or 3D animation yet, but then I just really took an interest in it. And back then at first I decided to study animation, but then after a while I actually transferred to SCAD in Savannah.
The US campus of our
US
school.
campus. And there I took my first 2D animation class, and then it was actually, I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, but then it was getting a little very like technical for me. And back then on the side, I was also doing like some getting to learn like 3D modeling in Maya and ZBrush, and I was also enjoying that a lot. So then at that time I was thinking of doing like a double majoring both animation and visual effects. But I have to be honest, it's a little hard to have a double major because all the classes are taking up a lot of our time, and it's really a lot to take on to have a double major. And so then when I had to pick one, I did pick visual effects over animation because animation was like the drawing was a little fun, but the technical side of it, like the study of the weight of an object and doing all the follow through and all that was getting it got me a little frustrated. Maybe I'm not the brightest student in the class, but yeah, but because of how I went through all the it those were like 2 animation classes,
Yeah.
and then I really realized what I liked about animation and what are the parts that I do not enjoy.
Then what do you think? Because I feel like I also started with the intention of animation when I first got into the school, because it was, like I came from the passion of animation, but I realized I think the school you choose really, really matters, because they have very different approaches to it. And when we say animation, it's actually a huge, like a very varied industry when it comes to, especially like later career, if you go to larger studios. So, and I know it wasn't just me, I've witnessed a lot of animation students in SCAT Hong Kong also, where kids with like a really passionate animation background would come in thinking, yes, I want to study animation. But when they actually started to take the classes, they would realize, for example, SCAD is very technical when it comes to animation, right? Like it kind of raises you as a labor force.
I guess it's something that every animator has to go through to learn the technical side of it first before you can take on a more artistic or have more creative
So I guess it's not for everyone, or it depends on the, like there can be, you might think you like animation, but there's usually actually something that draws you into it more.
Yeah, because there's more to creating a whole animation film than the animating part. Like there's concept design, there's like character design, there's effects and all that. So for me, I took on like a different aspect of the and part of animation that I liked, and try to look for like a field where I can work in and still work on like animation or movies.
And what was that part that you found in visual effects instead of animation? That
I was focusing on 3D modeling at the time, and I did some 3D like model texturing as well. So in a way, it's giving life to characters in a different way.
Then, do you actually have any advice for the young, passionate people who are just like planning to enter the animation industry?
I think of it as like, say, if an artist is trying to find their own style, then they would want to try different things first. Say, some people like to approach their art starting with like drawing lines and have really detailed line art and all that, and then some people like to draw in like block in like really general shapes first. It's kind of like finding what you really like and really have an interest in first, and then because there's so many resources online right now, so I think as a young artist, you can maybe look for like open source softwares and then try to play around with those, and then try to discover what you like best about animation.
Then another question is, like, when you first decided to like study what you did, I'm assuming you had expectations of what life would be after you graduated, or what like working for studios would be like. How did those expectations, realized in real life later on?
I was actually really looking forward to working in a studio, because I feel like in a studio environment, you really get to collaborate with different like talented people who obviously know a lot more stuff than you do, or I do. And then, because with collaborations, like when I was doing 3D modeling, I had to pass the 3D model to like the people who would do the rigging and people who would do the texturing and all that, and I would have to learn about like what they can do and what are the limitations that they have. And that really like got me to know a lot more about their work and different aspects of the production pipeline.
We actually have some of Maggie's visual vis effects, basically, work also to share. Let us pull up. So this was when, I don't think you mentioned, you actually, before coming to Disney, worked for this film, right? Which studio was this?
It's a movie production company in Hong Kong, and the studio that I worked at, it's called Fat Face Productions.
Let me start the clip, and Maggie can continue talking over it. You mentioned you actually worked on this for almost 2 years.
Yeah, so we created a lot of the models for this film, like including like the vehicles that you're seeing, like the we call it an exosuit, but then it's like the very like sci-fi looking suit that the characters are they're wearing, and the environments for the film, with the scene you're seeing here.
Go. So what was it for you, what was it like for you working on a project like this for so long?
I would say I'm really excited, and I'm really excited to see the film finally coming out.
It's still not out yet.
Yeah, it's still not out yet. So this is the teaser, and it's all that's online right now. But I'm really hoping to see it, so like I'll be.
If you work on something for so long. What was it also like, because did you graduate in SCAD Savannah, like US campus, or in Hong Kong campus?
I graduated in US campus.
Did you have any expectations on when you went to US to study, of like trying to stay in US too?
It was actually pretty tough because of all the visa issues back then. And some companies look at what like if you need a visa to work for them, and then for you to work for a company there, you have to get the company to apply for a working visa for you. And in the film production industry, or visual effects industry at least, it's kind of difficult to get a full-time job right out of college. So it's difficult, but not impossible, for companies to apply for a working visa for like international students.
I was very surprised also when I first started considering, like, because I do think university education is like a really great gateway if you want to work at somewhere you're not from as an international student. But I guess you do really need to plan it well, because it can get very competitive as a fresh graduate when you're first out of school. And depending on the country's policies, basically. I was given a similar reply when I did for the Imaginations competition. The winners would visit US and get to do interviews. But even for like a large company like Disney, they found it really hard because they'd have to justify hiring an international person for the visa process. And when you're a fresh graduate, it is kind of like hard for them to say, oh, there really is no one else that could do this job in our country. So for me, it was also a decision to switch back on my last year to come to Hong Kong, because I actually, when I checked the immigration policy-wise or work visa-wise, I would have a better chance in Hong Kong, actually, just thanks to their policies. So it is a thing that you, I think, should consider if you're looking for universities to like study in and then trying to stick in that country. How did you enjoy the Hong Kong studio life, like working in film studios before this?
I I enjoy working with my colleagues, but the industry is it's not a very big industry in Hong Kong. So there's only maybe a handful of studios that are like really like one of the more competitive studios in Hong Kong. So I was glad to be able to work at Fat Face for close to 3 years. I've learned a lot.
So what was the jump from the Fat Face Studios to Disney? Because it's a very different, like, two lines of businesses, actually.
Yeah, it took a little bit of time for me to get used to, because when I was working at the film studio, all that I create only appears on screen. But then at Disney, I have to think of how like some of my concepts might have the potential of translating into something that's going to be built or produced in real life. So it's yeah, it took some time for me to get used to. I had to think in a different way. But then after a while, I realized that some of my skill sets actually do translate. So when I'm working in Disney, I also work on like storyboards. That's something that I've learned in school and is able to apply to my current job. And I think like my 3D modeling skills also help with like visualizations, and I've also done like a sculptural task that that was assigned to me because of my skills in 3D modeling.
So I do think we kind of like glossed over in the beginning, and it might have looked very kind of like almost out of place because it jumps so much, right? Like glass panels and gilding, where you actually painted the gilding yourself, right? Like
I did a little bit of it.
And was that mainly made in AI, in Adobe AI?
I drew in Photoshop first, and then like did a lot of editing in Illustrator.
So it's in the SQ actually, we get to work on a really crazy variety of works, right? Because we're quite a small team, I'd say.
And then a lot of people in our team have a very diverse background. Some of them come from like a theater background. Some of us come from like visual art, and then we have interior designers and what else?
We have interior graphic designers, interior designers, like paint specialists, and almost everyone has multiple skill sets, right? So
some people are in the more technical side.
Yeah, we do have a very technical team too, like light equipment and like animatronics. So it's actually a really exciting place to be. And I guess I was actually really surprised to, like with my major or your major, I wouldn't think it would get us to work in theme parks where we deal with like an actual park setting. But the really cool thing I feel like about our like having a design background is that it is so versatile and it can really turn into unexpected things. So from like an animation and visual effects side to translate into where we do a lot of like both graphic work, like storyboards and 3D installation. Do you think there's anything specific that your visual effects, visual effects background translates to your current work?
I think it's because in my previous job, I was building a lot of environments for the film, and then we also had to visualize the environments in like a 3-dimensional way. And then with now, sometimes we would create concepts for like interiors or showpieces, show sets, and it would be easier for me to have the 3D view and like within my mind.
Then how do you feel about where your like animation journey ended you up in? Are you looking forward to like the future? What are you happy with? what you're doing?
I think maybe I would try and do some, like, definitely want to try to do some animations on like my free time.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I would want to do,
Mm-hmm.
and just to like, kind of keep trying and to develop like my art skills, including like drawing or like some more like basic or fundamental art skills.
Then in the end, do you think, or well, I should say, what would be your message to animation lovers in Turkey and around the world?
I would say just take up, like, don't be afraid to take up the chances you manage to get. It might not be something that you have always had in mind, but like, just don't be afraid to try it out, and you only get to live once. So for me, it's like just, if you're young, and why not just try it out? It might be something that you end up like developing a passion for, and it might not be the thing that you thought you would become. Like, if you have always had the goal of being an animator and it's working towards it and it's good for you, but then if you are like how I was back then, not absolutely sure what to do back then, it's always good to just like take the chance and like have fun with it. Thank you for having me, Jana and Dilara.
Thank you, Maggie, for being our guest today. We will have many more to come, so please enjoy the rest of the festival also. And thank you for watching, everyone.